Welcome to In Focus on this Sunday, August 3rd, 2025. I'm Cheryl Wills. We're counting down to the first day of school. On September 4th, just 4 weeks from today, some 900,000 students will return to class in the nation's largest school district, and this time, no phones allowed. Our guests on this Sunday, Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles-Ramos. She explains how the new ban will work, and she also outlines her top priorities for the new school year. Plus,
now all the complaints around discrimination, harassment are handled by one single center, which works on the training of all the individuals conducting the investigation. So we have more timely investigations, we're more responsive.
CUNY Chancellor Felix Matos Rodriguez also joins us to discuss his recent testimony before Congress about the rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses. And later,
I think that this set of expectations that we've put before us as a set of goals and objectives for the year would include, frankly, being very, very marketable to a population of parents and students who desperately need and want high-quality education.
we turn the clock back more than 25 years when then Schools Chancellor Rudy Crew took dramatic steps to shake up the Board of Education and end the practice of social promotion. All that and more in a moment. But first, many students give it a fat thumbs down, but Governor Hochul says the time has come for what she calls distraction-free schools. Jillian Jorgensen with a closer look now at that bell-to-bell ban on smartphones. Take a look.
School and a new ban on smartphones starts in just 6 weeks. That doesn't give schools much time to create their own policies for storing phones during the day. But Education Department officials say half of the city's schools were already restricting phones, and all of them can get financial support to get systems in place by September.
The schools are going to tell us what they need, which policy they're going to employ for their schools, and we're going to give them funding per student to do exactly what it is they've done last year, or if it's new this year that they're doing, to meet the need for their particular policy.
Mark Rampersant is the security director for the city's public school system. He says there are essentially two methods for how to store cell phones during the day. One is using pouches, like those made by the company Yonder. Students lock their phone into the pouch in front of school staff at the start of the day, making them unusable. They're unlocked on the way out of school.
What the pouch does is it prevents the school from having to collect. The young person keeps the pouch on their person, in their book bag, it's secured.
The Yonder system can cost up to $30 a student, but the city is providing schools with $25 million to implement the ban, on top of $4 million from the state, making it likely more schools may opt into the pouches. Schools can also opt to collect and store the phones during the school day, with designated school staff responsible for collecting at the start of the day and returning at the end.
Young people come in, hand the device over, it's put into a storage bin, usually by school or by grade. And then as they exit the building at the end of the day or in their last period class, it's disseminated back to young people at the end of the day. It's a simple process, and schools have it down to a science.
The state law does not require phones to be collected, but Rampersant says one thing that won't be allowed is simply telling students to keep the phones out of sight.
We're not going to accept the drop it in your book bag, and if I don't see it, we don't take it. Right? We need to make sure that we put preventative measures so that young people are not enticed to go into their bag and make a quick phone call.
Students who break the rules will face disciplinary action, but the citywide policy prohibits suspending students for just accessing their phones.
That's Jillian Jorgensen reporting for us on this Sunday. Let's begin today's conversation with Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles-Ramos. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
It's such a busy time for all of you,
Though
it's a fun busy, right? Even in August. You know, we just saw in Jillian's piece how it's going to be implemented. I'll get back to that in a moment. But first, I want you to talk to the students and parents who are watching, who are like, Why are we doing this? We won't be able to reach our students in the event of an emergency. What's your response to those who are not on board with this school ban?
Yeah, so first of all, that's a great question. And when I was a principal, I had a cell phone restriction policy. So I completely empathize with parents who have concerns, and this is new. My own daughter is a New York City public school student, and so she's thinking about the detoxing from her own phone. We've started over the summer. And so we are really working closely with our principals and our superintendents to make sure that those family communication plans are really, really strong. Of course, in the event of an emergency, but also for everyday communication. If something changes with a pickup, a parent is running late, or there's something going on, and they need to reach their child, we want to make sure that that communication plan between the school and the families is really strong. So heard them loudly and clearly. And this is one of the reasons why we held on restricting cell phones last school year. This is why the mayor and I said we're going to pause, we're going to do some engagement and really listen to the family so we could get ready in a big, bold way.
That's great. And what's your message to students who say, why? Why? So I'm going to, because you've heard it all.
Of course.
Why? So this is going to improve my mental health. Some are cynical about it. What's your message?
They absolutely are. And you know, we want our students to know that technology is also a tool. And so we want them to not only be consumers of technology, but we want them to focus on the great work that happens in school that's going to lead them to be producers of technology. Distraction-free zones are really going to help them build the socialization skills, have real conversations with their peers, and use technology, because we want to make sure everyone understands technology is something that is essential in our classrooms. And when we center technology in a positive way, it's going to lead to innovation. But we need to do it with some guardrails and make sure that our students are focusing and that there's a return to intellectual curiosity and that we're not just living on devices.
Yeah, and there's a mental health issue here because some kids get so deep in that cyberbullying, and that's something that you care deeply about, right?
Absolutely. And you know, when we go back to COVID and we think about how students' entire world lived online, their academics, their socialization, communication with families who were not living in their home. And then now we're saying we need to return to this more organic approach where we're not just living on devices. We need to be cognizant of that as well, because young people have grown incredibly attached to worlds that we sometimes can't even identify with. What are they learning on social media? With whom are they communicating? All of those things are concerning for parents, and we want our young people to be safe. We don't want our students to turn to devices because their depression is a symptom of a bigger issue. And so when we launched, you know, some of our key initiatives this past year, we are really focusing on anti-bullying, but also that mental health support for our young people.
Yeah, some of them are straight out addicted to these phones. So let's talk about the money part. This is expensive to do. And it seems like, Chancellor, every school has a different way of doing it. Like every school can choose, right?
Yep. So let's, first of all, now that it is a law, every single school will be complying with it. In the past, we had our chancellor's regulation, which again, going back to when I was a principal, our campus opted to restrict cell phone use during the school day, and we collected cell phones. So by updating our chancellor's regulation in alignment with the new state law, we are still able to give our principals an opportunity to design a plan that works best for them. That being said, that has to be in collaboration with their school leadership team. It has to be posted for families. So we've been working with the schools. I mean, over half of our schools already have some sort of a restriction policy. So we've really been leaning into the schools where this is new for them.
Okay. And I want to thank you. You're going to stay for our next segment because we're going to, this is the first day of school coming up for you too, your first opening. So we're going to talk about some of your priorities.
Thank you.
Still to come, the Emmy nominations are out and In Focus is up for some major awards. Stay with us. That's the talented band from Esperanza Preparatory Academy in East Harlem, helping to launch NYCPS Cares in April. Thanks for staying with us. We're back with Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles-Ramos. You were there to launch what is your signature program to address systemic inequities in schools. So tell us more about NYCPS Cares.
You know, when I was Chancellor Banks' Chief of Staff and we were first launching New York City Reads, I was so proud of the equity work that we were actually leading. You know, we've talked a lot about equity work in previous administrations, but we were actually doing the work. So I always want to, you know, hats off to him and the mayor for having this really big, bold vision around literacy. And I said to myself as a mom and as someone who experienced extreme poverty growing up, what are the things that keep our families from bringing kids to school? What are the things that plague our families, that keep our children from learning, despite these great initiatives like New York City Reads and Solves? And that's where we came up with CARES. And so the first part of New York City Public Schools CARES was around anti-bullying and anti-vaping campaigns, but those are student-led. And we know that the most powerful voices are our students. And so, you know, the old chancellor running around and saying, don't bully and don't vape is not enough. We know that we need our students to have agency, and so they're leading the charge on this campaign. And then the other part of it was the family connectors, which is near and dear to my heart. And these parents who volunteer their time, they are already acting as advocates. We said, what about training them officially to give them all the information on the resources that exist across New York City and how families can navigate those different agencies and accessing those different resources, whether it's food insecurity, housing insecurity that we're trying to solve for. Quite simply, what we said is, instead of telling people you're not bringing your children to school, we're asking, why aren't you bringing your children to school, and how can we be more helpful?
That's great. And there are many homeless students who will benefit, many immigrant students who will need that, so hats off to creating that.
Thank you.
You mentioned Chancellor Banks. We want to salute him because he had a laser focus. He sat in the very chair you're sitting in now, and he had a laser focus on improving reading scores.
Yes.
And you plan to build on his success.
Absolutely. And this started, Mayor Adams, when he was campaigning the first time around, and he was talking about his story and his experience with dyslexia and what that felt like in the classroom. And Chancellor Banks was super visionary, and he did a lot of big, bold things. And then one day he said, we need to return to the fundamentals. Kids are not reading. And that's where that journey started. So I'm super happy to build upon it.
That's awesome. And let's talk about new schools opening in the fall.
Yes.
That HBCU school in Queens.
So excited.
Tell us about all these new schools.
So we have 7 new schools opening up. The HBCU school is, I'm so excited to see. First of all, it has an amazing principal. I know her very well. She was a principal in the Bronx in my former district. And so that school is just opening with incredible leadership and just the vision, making sure that we're attaching our young people to these legacy schools and giving them these opportunities early on is incredible. Bronx STEAM Center, always have to mention, you know, back in my home borough. So super excited about seeing that as well.
And career pathways, you know, preparing students for the workforce. Tell us more.
Yeah, we are in over 130 high schools in with our Future Ready program. Exciting, really progressive work, because we are making sure that our young people are exploring college and career while they are in high school in a real, authentic way. The other piece of it is the dollars that we are putting in students' pockets, the wages that they are earning while they are in school. And these opportunities are attached to some of our struggling youth. And that's what's really important to me, that this is true equity work. Because when you have to choose between an apprenticeship or an internship, some sort of an opportunity to further your education, or working part-time to support your family, you're going to choose the latter. We're making sure that you don't have to make that decision. You get to work and further your career and still bring home some dollars.
It's a win-win. Chancellor, good luck on opening day next month. It'll be your first opening, and we're going to have you back to find out how this whole implementation
I can't wait.
Good to see you. Thank you. Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles-Ramos. Time for another break. In Focus continues right after this. And now, a flashback from our New York One archives. September 9th, 1999, some 26 years ago, the Board of Education votes to end the practice of social promotion.
I think that this set of expectations that we've put before us as a set of goals and objectives for the year would include, frankly, being very, very marketable to a population of parents and students who desperately need and want high-quality education.
Then Schools Chancellor Rudy Crew was firmly against advancing students to the next grade, even if they had not successfully completed the work. Crew was appointed by Mayor Rudy Giuliani back in 1995, laser focused on shaking up the nation's largest school district.
It was what we started out as calling a systemic reform movement. We really mean that to be the case. This is not about just, sort of creating one or two flurries in the field, but really moving the entire system.
In 1997, Chancellor Crew was front and center for the signing of landmark legislation that changed the way schools were governed in New York City.
If you're serious about, creating enough energy to move beyond the inertia of old, beyond all of the past issues and all of the past pitfalls.
The other Rudy, as he was known in the press, was chancellor for 4 years, serving from 1995 until 99.
We now need to understand that the guardrails have been dissolved.
Today, Dr. Crew, now 74, is a professor of clinical education at USC.
What we can do is make sure that the voice of the City University of New York, as I mentioned to you, no tolerance of anti-Semitism, North Star of safety, that everybody in the university understands that.
That's CUNY Chancellor Felix Matos Rodriguez testifying before Congress on July 9th about anti-Semitism on campuses. The Chancellor joins us now. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you again. Thank you for all the wonderful things that you do, and always good to be in your show.
Oh, thank you so much, Chancellor. And let's talk about your testimony before Congress. You assured them, as you've been assuring New Yorkers, that there will be no anti-Semitism allowed on CUNY campuses. Tell us more about that.
Well, we wanted to sort of send that message loud and clear. That we have no tolerance for anti-Semitism, and for that matter, for any kind of hate and discrimination on our campuses. It is challenging given the polarizing environment that we're in, but that is our North Star. And what we're doing is making sure that we create programming that encourages people to be able to talk about difficult subjects in a civilized and appropriate way. We're investing in some educational programs to be able to do that. But we're also sending a clear signal that we expect that everybody in the City University of New York abides by our rule of conduct. We're making clear what those rules are, and that there be consequences if individual breaks those rules. So we want to make sure that everybody knows where we stand. And we're an educational institution, so we believe that with education you can build bridges and help build community and have people talk about challenging issues, but it needs to be done in a respectful way. And that's the message that we shared with the Congress on the hearing, and that we've been sharing with stakeholders here in New York. We've been very fortunate to work with many of our Jewish stakeholder organizations in New York and getting their feedback and ideas on how we can do better, which we acknowledge that we have to continue to do. Two of our campuses got 8 grades from the American Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, on this college campus scorecard, Queens College and Brooklyn.
Okay, and let's pivot to enrollment. It was up about 6% on CUNY campuses. What does the fall look like?
Well, those numbers are for the summer. So we had a great summer, and we're very delighted that students are using the summer as part of the menu, right, to continue the academic momentum in their careers, as you know, because I know that you've interviewed and know many of our students. Many of them work. So the idea of using the summer, right? You might take a smaller load in the fall and the spring, and then take a class or two in the summer, allows you to be able to pace yourself in an appropriate way. So far, the numbers for the fall are also looking very, very promising. I don't want to jinx them. And that were particularly in our community colleges, that was the sector that was affected the most in the pandemic. We lost about 30% of the enrollment there compared to 2019. So those numbers are robust. And we have programs like CUNY Reconnect that is reaching out there and telling New Yorkers that have some college but have not finished that we want them back to get degrees that matter. And our investment with the New York City Public Schools has been intense. Our campaign to get them to apply earlier has yielded results, and we're proud of that work.
Okay, and I want to quickly get in the white coat ceremony for students transitioning from the BS program to the MD program. Tell us more.
I mean, that is such a beautiful program. It's a CUNY School of Medicine, which is anchored in the Sophie Davis School at CCNY, a program that has students who begin freshman year, right? And they go 7 years through medical school. It has allowed us to have a class among the most diverse in the country, and also individuals who are committed to primary care, which, as you know, is one of the areas in which we're failing in many of our communities. We don't have enough primary care doctors. So these are individuals who are representative of New York, of all the different races, culture, ethnicities, and they bring that to their education. So I'm delighted. I don't have a white coat, so I was using a white guayabera, appropriate for the summer to connect with the students. But we're so proud of the work of the CUNY Medical School. We just became our 26th independent campus. So very proud of all those students. And I know they're going to continue to change the face of medicine in New York City and New York State, and also the supply of primary care doctors, which are so needed in many of our underserved communities.
So needed indeed. CUNY Chancellor Felix Matos Rodriguez, appreciate your time. And now, our final focus. The New York Emmy nominations are out, and Spectrum News New York won, up for more than 24 awards, including one near and dear to our hearts. The Walk. This In Focus special half-hour report, the discovery and reburial of Sandy Wills, traced my years-long journey to rescue my great-great-great-grandfather from an unmarked grave and give this Civil War veteran a proper military burial 135 years after his death. We salute all of the nominees, and we really look forward to the New York Emmy Awards ceremony in the fall. Hey, thanks for watching In Focus. I'm Cheryl Wills. We appreciate you spending your Sunday with us. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. To keep up with important issues impacting our communities and hear more conversations with the people who are shaping the future, subscribe to our channel. You can also download our app or find Spectrum News on your TV for balanced, in-depth political coverage and more. We'll see you there.